Dr. George Nikopoulos spent a lot of time here at Graceland. He was a medical doctor first, but his life became defined by Elvis and Elvis's troubles.
A sealed chamber inside Graceland has remained untouched for decades, and what recent explorers discovered within its walls is forcing people to reconsider everything they thought they knew about rock and roll's greatest icon. Behind the locked chamber, the room no one could enter when the king purchased Graceland in 1957 at just 22 years old. His trajectory was already accelerating beyond measure. The Memphis property cost $100,000, yet represented far more than a financial investment. For someone who had grown up in working-class poverty in Mississippi, this massive estate symbolized proof that his world had completely transformed. It became his personal sanctuary, his kingdom removed from the constant scrutiny of admirers worldwide. The house initially buzzed with activity. Family members occupied its rooms, animals roamed the grounds, and visitors circulated through the various spaces. Elvis had created his own universe here, spaces designed to reflect his personality and taste. The jungle-themed room displayed his extravagant aesthetic. The basement television viewing area allowed him to monitor multiple channels simultaneously. Even the athletic court served as more than recreation. It became a private retreat where music played and friends gathered. Yet beyond this visible spectacle existed another dimension of Elvis that remained largely hidden. The meditation garden held special significance for him, offering escape from the endless demands and noise that fame perpetually generated. When he sought solitude, this garden became his refuge. Inside the mansion walls, each chamber appeared to reveal yet another layer of his complex identity. Everything shifted irrevocably on August 16, 1977. When death claimed the performer, Graceland transformed from residence into shrine. His father Vernon implemented stringent protective measures, concerned about security and the sanctity of the property. When Graceland opened its doors to the public in 1982, tourists could walk through numerous rooms, observe his clothing, examine his possessions, and glimpse fragments of his extraordinary existence. The staircase to the upper level, however, remained completely blocked and inaccessible. Visitors could gaze toward it, but advance no farther. The official position remained consistent. Those rooms represented private family space and would stay sealed out of respect for the Presley household. This simple barrier only intensified the mystery exponentially. For many decades, countless people wondered what secrets lay beyond that closed threshold. Was it merely personal memorabilia preserved for family reflection, or did it contain recollections that relatives felt should remain hidden from public scrutiny? A more troubling explanation existed for why that upper chamber had been guarded so fiercely. To comprehend why that entrance stayed sealed for nearly 5 decades, we must examine what transpired on Elvis's final afternoon. What occurred upstairs that fateful day? By August 16th afternoon, Elvis had become accustomed to an unconventional existence pattern. His schedule inverted typical norms. Nights extended into early morning hours, while daylight periods became sleeping time. This lifestyle was standard for those surrounding him, yet this particular day would rupture that calm routine with tragic consequences. He rested in his second-floor bedroom, while the mansion functioned normally around him. His companion Ginger Alden anticipated he would remain nearby and accessible. As the afternoon advanced, an unsettling quietness began building within the residence. Around 2:30, Alden decided to check his condition. She attempted knocking on the bathroom entrance, but received no acknowledgement. Upon entering, she made a horrifying discovery. Elvis lay motionless on the floor in a state of unconsciousness, his lower garments removed. The atmosphere within Graceland shifted instantly into panic and crisis. Joe Esposito, one of Elvis's most trusted associates and professional road manager, immediately rushed upstairs attempting emergency revival procedures. Medical personnel received urgent notification and arrived swiftly at the property. Elvis underwent emergency transport to Baptist Memorial Hospital, where medical teams continued desperate resuscitation efforts. Those attempts proved futile. At 3:30 p.m., Elvis Presley was officially pronounced deceased. He had only reached 42 years. The impact reverberated instantly across the world. News outlets interrupted broadcasts. Television stations distributed urgent reports. Crowds assembled at Graceland, attempting to process an occurrence that seemed impossible. The performer who had defined an entire musical generation for 2 decades had simply vanished. Medical authorities initially attributed his death to a cardiac rhythm disturbance and irregular heartbeat pattern. Yet this explanation generated additional questions rather than providing answers. Elvis had battled serious physical ailments for extended periods, and his condition had become increasingly impossible to conceal. His body weight increased substantially. Video documentation from later performances revealed an artist appearing exhausted, struggling with physical coordination, and occasionally seeming mentally absent. The contrast between his earlier vitality and current appearance proved deeply disturbing. He who once seemed limitless now appeared visibly compromised behind the glittering exterior. Then, scientific analysis provided startling revelations. Testing discovered multiple pharmaceuticals and chemical substances within Elvis's system: codeine, Demerol, Dilaudid, Percodan, and Quaaludes. This discovery generated intense examination of the medical treatment Elvis received and sparked extensive debate regarding factors contributing to his physical deterioration. For the Presley family, however, this tragedy carried profoundly personal dimensions. Those upper rooms now bore permanent association with Elvis's final moments. Defending that section of the property meant protecting painful recollections that hardly required millions of curious outsiders peering inside. Yet lingering questions about Elvis's concluding years would not simply disappear. Focus gradually shifted toward the medical professional who had supervised his care throughout a 13-year period. This physician, George Nichopoulos, known universally as Dr. Nick, and his medication practices connected to Elvis, would become the most contentious element of the king's legacy. The physician behind his decline, Elvis's deteriorating physical condition, stemmed partly from a troubled professional relationship that generated ongoing dispute long after his death. At the center stood Dr. George Nichopoulos, the medical practitioner known simply as Dr. Nick. Nichopoulos assumed care for Elvis beginning in 1967, gradually becoming far more than a routine healthcare provider who appeared periodically. He traveled alongside the singer, participated in his social circles, and wielded substantial influence over his pharmaceutical regimen. The numbers eventually provoked significant attention and concern. Throughout Elvis's final 8 months, Dr. Nick dispensed nearly 200 prescriptions representing more than 10,000 individual pills, tablets, and measured doses. The preceding year totaled approximately 19,000 individual units. Elvis ingested medication at such frequency that it averaged more than 1 prescription daily. Acquaintances recounted witnessing Elvis carrying extensive medication collections, occasionally accumulating enough containers to resemble a mobile pharmaceutical supply operation. To observers and critics, the circumstances appeared medically indefensible. How could any responsible medical provider permit such enormous quantities to concentrate around a deteriorating patient? Dr. Nick provided an alternative perspective on this controversy. He asserted that Elvis experienced legitimate medical conditions warranting treatment: chronic discomfort, visual pressure elevation, and digestive inflammatory disease. He further contended that his function was managing the situation rather than abandoning Elvis to pursue uncontrolled and potentially hazardous sources. Discontinuing prescriptions, in his judgment, might have driven the entertainer toward considerably more dangerous alternatives. Yet, following Elvis's death, this justification underwent intense critical examination. In 1980, prosecutors charged Nichopoulos with 14 separate allegations concerning excessive pharmaceutical distribution to Elvis and additional patients. The prosecution characterized him as a medical provider who had fundamentally exceeded acceptable professional conduct parameters. However, the jury ultimately determined insufficient evidence supported conviction. accepting arguments that Elvis might have procured substances regardless of medical refusal. The matter did not conclude with acquittal. 1995 saw the Tennessee Medical Authority revoke Nicopolis's professional license permanently. By that period, public perception had generally positioned Dr. Nick among the most disputed individuals connected to Elvis's concluding years. Simultaneously, alternative explanations were gaining scholarly attention. During 2020, researcher Sally Hodel presented a book titled Destined to Die Young, proposing that Elvis's decline resulted from more than pharmaceutical dependency. She identified inherited genetic disorders, specifically alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, which compromises liver and respiratory function. Additional constitutional health factors potentially contributed to his suffering, exhaustion, infections, and pulmonary complications. This perspective does not eliminate concerns regarding his medication practices, yet suggests that Elvis's deterioration involved considerably greater complexity than simple reckless prescribing. While specialists continued debating what genuinely occurred with the performer, millions of everyday supporters contemplated an entirely separate possibility. What if the king's narrative had not genuinely concluded on that August afternoon? The persistent he remains mythology Elvis Presley may have received an official death declaration, yet for certain followers, this represented merely the narrative's beginning. Shock and refusal rapidly transformed into widespread speculation immediately following his passing. Individuals unable to acknowledge the king's disappearance started propagating stories about his secret retreat to undisclosed locations beyond public reach. What started as isolated rumors expanded into a planetary-scale phenomenon. One account from the era described someone purchasing airfare from Memphis toward South America utilizing an Elvis-associated pseudonym. Subsequent alleged sightings followed. Someone in Michigan reported encountering the performer while receiving service at a quick-service restaurant. Reported observations progressively positioned him everywhere: gas station restrooms, shopping centers, random street corners. These accounts multiplied until Elvis observation narratives developed into their own distinctive subculture. Commercial tabloid enterprises amplified the obsession considerably, with certain periodicals providing regular recurring segments dedicated to reported sightings. Some narratives became progressively more intricate, alleging Elvis had joined witness security programs or deliberately orchestrated his disappearance. Graceland's persistent closure only strengthened these speculations. The unreachable upper level remained sealed, representing a massive blank space inside the world's most recognizable Elvis landmark. Tourist groups could traverse much of the residence, yet they remained unable to transcend that final barrier. For adherents of these theories, the secured staircase supplied additional justification for wondering whether family members concealed critical information. Examination of Elvis's death circumstances furnished additional material for conspiracy advocates. Discussions emerged regarding his coffin's reported heaviness, his body's observable state, and even his epitaph's surname spelling. To rational observers, these particulars yielded simple explanations. To committed theorists, they constituted evidence segments of a far more comprehensive narrative. The mythology persisted without complete disappearance for decades. Yet Graceland eventually confronted actual hazards unconnected to folklore or conspiracy theories. During 2024, an unfamiliar lending enterprise designated Nosany Investments and Private Lending, LLC, asserted that Riley Keough, Elvis's descendant and property controller, had neglected loan payment obligations exceeding millions. The company pursued proceeding with property liquidation, creating upheaval throughout the devoted follower community. The assertion gained substantial publicity, generating debate regarding financial management and the possibility that the revered Memphis landmark could potentially be separated from family stewardship. Keough's legal representatives maintained that underlying documentation proved fraudulent. Emergency litigation pursued, and judiciary authorities stopped the liquidation plan, characterizing Graceland as an irreplaceable cultural legacy whose destruction would inflict irreversible damage. The purported creditor declined courtroom participation. Graceland remained under family governance. Yet this occurrence served as an important cautionary reminder. Maintaining Elvis's heritage transcended simply restricting visitor passage beyond a secured passageway. Family members confronted the proposition of their property's genuine vulnerability, and subsequently arrived something that seemed unachievable for prior generations. A sealed entryway that persisted closed through 5 consecutive decades appeared poised for eventual disclosure. The threshold finally yields throughout generations. That blocked passageway symbolized a crossing point conventional Graceland guests could never overcome. Then circumstances transformed fundamentally during January 2025. Preservation specialists reportedly penetrated the prolonged closed upper zones, carrying protective equipment and archival materials, preparing examination of an environment supposedly remaining unchanged since Elvis's concluding period. After many years of speculation, people ultimately accessed the interior. The experience confounded expectations regarding a discarded storage compartment. The environment maintained remarkable condition throughout decades. Light-proof window treatments protected interior chambers, while climate systems continued functioning, maintaining optimal preservation conditions for accumulated materials. The distinction proved striking. While additional property sections transformed into publicly accessible exhibitions encountered by multitudes of visitors, this sequestered location persisted as a private temporal repository. Subsequently surfaced the containers. They demonstrated intentional organization aligned with discrete periods from Elvis's biography, containing identification referencing intervals including Mississippi beginnings, military service, picture industry, television return, and desert performances. Rather than representing arbitrary household remnants carelessly placed, the assemblage seemed deliberately prepared, nearly resembling an intentionally constructed retrospective archive documenting the performer's journey. Initial discoveries intensified the narrative's emotional resonance. One compartment allegedly contained a weathered plush companion creature connected to the performer's youth and his mother Gladys. An additional container held a religious scripture associated with his uniformed period, reinforced with adhesive material and containing extensive personalization and marginal annotations. These objects diverged substantially from glamorous items popularly connected with the king. They instead illuminated the human being underneath the sequined outfits, celebrity status, and audience hysteria. Supplementary objects delivered much more intimate exposure to Elvis's concealed psychology. A garment from his motion picture presentation supposedly contained manuscript notes discussing withdrawal when demanded, indicating ideas he may have withheld from his closest associates. Literary works examining metaphysical matters, life and death questions, and spiritual investigation supposedly exposed his profound engagement with existential matters transcending renown, prosperity, and mass recognition. Yet discovered materials represented merely one component of the revelation's intrigue. Advancing deeper into examination, specialists recognized something increasingly apparent. This aggregation transcended simple forgotten possessions. Indicators demonstrated the area had benefited from maintenance throughout the years. Technical apparatus had not remained abandoned, and containers maintained methodical arrangement rather than displaying the degradation associated with prolonged neglect. Individual parties had seemingly maintained this private retreat. However, discoveries had not yet reached their extraordinary apex. Contained within the cautiously safeguarded materials existed something surpassing what images and tangible objects could accomplish. It possessed capability to reconstruct the performer inside that space. At the moment audio reproduction commenced, nearly 5 decades of stillness faced imminent termination. Elvis's final messages, the most striking discovery, did not constitute something suitable for exhibition display. Rather, it represented material still audible, The archived materials included phonograph recordings designated private practice recordings 1976. Throughout the decades, they had stayed hidden alongside supplementary personal artifacts connected to the performer. Upon actual reproduction, acoustic silence transformed into a voice billions globally had formerly recognized instantly. The king performed vocal rendition. One specific recording supposedly contained an understated interpretation of Unchained Melody, memorialized merely months preceding his passing. Absent existed the enthusiastic audience reaction, the complicated theatrical staging, and elaborate spectacle characterizing most of his profession. In its place, the captured material supposedly demonstrated a considerably more exposed performer. His acoustic timbre conveyed exhaustion, tenderness, and profound humanity. This distinction constituted the discovery's disturbing dimension. General audiences conceived of Elvis as the youthful musical transformer, the bedazzled performer capable of commanding enormous venues through pure presence. Yet these documents appeared supplying something substantially more concealed, an individual performing unshielded by the massive construct he had constructed. Certain analysts interpreted this demonstration as engagement with mortality consciousness. Whether such interpretation carries merit remains debatable. Nonetheless, encountering the performer's vocal presence conserved within a place, remaining concealed through decades, generates extraordinary retroactive connection. And yet discovered materials represented merely part of the enigma. The space's maintenance status reportedly suggested persistent guardianship instead of permanent abandonment. Equipment had persisted functioning, safeguarding contents from environmental deterioration. Compartments displayed coordinated rather than disorganized arrangement, with materials demonstrating deliberate protective measures. This prompts consideration: who maintained observation of this assemblage? Immediate relatives? Dependable staff? Someone comprehending these materials warranted custodial devotion? Whoever supervised this environment contributed virtually no visible documentation, enabling the chamber itself to constitute another dimension of the Elvis mystery. Yet perhaps the revelation carried greatest significance. Extraordinary circumstances remained unnecessary. The space required neither concealed compartments, unexplainable vanishments, nor demonstrations of continued existence to generate significance. It retained something considerably more authentic and ultimately commanding. It contained fragments of the performer himself, forgotten moments, uniformed chapter, reference materials, personal manuscript observation, gathered objects, and, most disturbingly, acoustic preservation. Throughout nearly 50 years, audiences could exclusively observe the barrier and hypothesize interior contents. Currently, assuming reported revelations remain trustworthy, the solution was not individual astounding object lingering in obscurity. Rather, it constituted a preserved remnant of Elvis's undisclosed existence, and perhaps this explains the chamber's persistent captivation across generations. Rock's greatest monarch experienced continuous visibility by multitudes, yet his personally meaningful materials remained secluded behind isolation. So, progressing years onward, the inquiry possibly transforms. Previously, what concealed secrets awaited discovery? Currently, how extensively did the planet overlook regarding who Elvis genuinely represented? What aspect of the attic's revelations strikes you most powerfully? Share your perspective within the discussion section. Subsequently access additional content exploring concealed narratives from entertainment's most legendary personalities. If this narrative captivated your attention, please extend a like and subscribe to Crime Brief for additional mysteries, forgotten histories, and remarkable disclosures that transform our comprehension of celebrity legacy and concealment.